So episode 16 of the Brake Van Diaries, and we are back in the workshop. This time we've got an array of various rusty items here from different parts of underneath the brake van and some parts from the main body as well. And the reason we're in here is because Built Hamber have sent me a couple of products. Now one you'll recognise, Hydrate 80, which I've mentioned plenty of times before, and the other one is this product called Deox-C. So we'll roll the intros and find out a little bit more about them. So like I said in the introduction, the guys over at Built Hamber have sent me these two products to put to the test. Now, as you'll know, if you've been keeping up with the whole series, I use an awful lot of Hydrate 80. But if you know this brand and you know your cars, these products are commonly used on vehicles. And if you have a look at their website, which I'll leave down below, most of their products, well, all of their products are designed for motor vehicles. However, after speaking to them, it kind of appeared that perhaps the railway is a bit of an untapped market. Now, I do know Michael down at the Somerset and Dorset Railway was the person, obviously, who originally recommended the Hydra 80 stuff. So I know they use it a lot down there. And I've started using it a lot on my brake van as well. So what we're going to do today, we're basically going to test the two products. As I say, I've got some pieces here which have been sandblasted, and then I've got some other bits from the brake mechanism which we removed last episode to have a go at cleaning up the rust on them. So the Hydra 80, as you would have seen in the previous episodes, this is used to give it like a protective layer to kill the rust and give a protective layer over the top of the metal. And hopefully with some time lapses today, you'll actually be able to see that happen throughout the video. And then this stuff here, this Deox-C, this is basically a powder that you mix, I believe, 19 parts water to 1 part of this. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to submerge some parts into the mixture, and it says within the first 20 minutes, depending on how rusty it is. And I mean, compared to the rest of the brake van, these aren't the rustiest things. So we're going to put these in for various lengths of time and see how they come out. So what we're going to do first is, I've just, as you'd have seen from the clip I'm about to insert now, is that we've cleaned up the insides of where the coach bolts sit. And these are obviously the brackets where the hand railings sit into on the verandas at both ends. So I've got two done here, and using a countersink, I've just cleaned up the inside edges there from all the rubbish. And then what we're going to do now is give them both a coat of Hydra 80 and see how quickly, because what it is, when you apply this, there's quite a dramatic colour change, which it sort of indicates that it's working. So what I'll do is I'm going to put them on here, put the time lapse on it, paint it, and then see how quickly these get their protective layer of the Hydra 80. So yeah, let's jump into it. Right, so what we're going to start with is of course the Hydra 80. Now you'd have seen me use this multiple times throughout the series so far, but for today's experiment we're going to be using these two brackets here. Now all we need to do for this, very simple, give it a good shake. Now this stuff goes a long way, so we only need to pour a little bit into the bucket here. And then we're going to apply a coat to both of these, and then I'll chuck the time lapse on it and we can actually find out how long it takes to convert. So yeah, let's jump into the time lapse. So we've given it 20 minutes, and as you can see, they're almost virtually dry, which is just fantastic. You'd have seen, if I show a quick before and after picture of applying it to the colour now, just in case you can't see it too clearly from the time lapse, of what they look like. I also did one of these brake block brackets as well, and as you can see, I did this about 5 minutes after that one, and this is already dry to the touch. And just to give you an idea, that's what it looked like beforehand. And that's it with the Hydra 80. So you can tell it's already made a huge difference. So while we let these three bits finish off drying, I've just gone and measured a bucket of this water here, and then what we need to do for the amount of water I've used, as it's 19 parts to 1 part of this, I need to get half a cup here of, or it's actually a quarter of a litre of the powder, mix it in here, and then we can start having a go at de-rusting some of these and see how well they do. So what we're going to do now is pour that in there, mix it up and drop a couple of those items in, and fingers crossed it does the job. Right, so for this first experiment, the 3 items we're going to put in, we're going to put 1 spring in, 1 metal washer and 1 nut and bolt. So obviously these have all been cleaned up as much as possible, removing any sort of dry bits and lumps, and as you can see that's nice. That moves okay on that, so we're just going to drop this in. Item number 2 and item number 3. So this here was sandblasted a little while ago, like similar to how this one was done. However, this has been left outside, so it started to get a bit of surface rust. So what we're doing now is applying a coat to here to see if we can get the same results and see how long it takes for it to work its magic. Now that was about 15 to 20 minutes. So we're going to see if applying it straight to the rust this time rather than to a sandblasted surface, if it takes a little bit longer or whether we've still got the same working time with it. So again, what we're going to do is just coat this all, do all the edges. Like so. And then we'll chuck the time lapse on that and see how long that takes. Right, so this has now had 2 coats of Hydrate 80, and as you can see, the transformation from what they originally looked like to what they are now is absolutely fantastic. And it says a minimum time on that before you can do anything with them is 20 minutes, and I've left these about half an hour, 45 minutes now, so these are going to be good to paint. And just simply, we're not going to do any other undercoat, we're just going to go straight over the top with some smooth white Hammerite metal paint, and we'll give these a couple of coats to hopefully get the colour on these looking nice. As you'll see here, one of the brackets that hold the brake blocks has just had its second coat, well not too long ago had its second coat of Hydrate 80, and that's just drying up nicely at the moment, and then that'll be ready to paint with some of the black Hammerite paint. So what we're going to do now is just paint up these 2, and then we'll see how the mixture in the bucket's getting on. Right, so I've just taken this spring out from the bucket with the powder mix in it, and as you can see, it is a lot cleaner than the ones that I haven't put in yet. However, this hasn't been in there for particularly long. I have just gone across again with this little chisel and just scrape away any more rubbish that's kind of loosened itself up while being in the bucket with the mixture in there. So what I'm going to do is, well, I'm not back here now so today's Tuesday, I'm not back down here till Thursday, so I'm actually going to put the rest of these in the bucket as well, and then hopefully when we come back in a couple of days, these should all be looking lovely. So we're going to chuck these in here, and then the next time I see you guys in the video, it'll be 2 days time for me, but a couple of seconds for you guys. But yeah, the last thing I want to do before I go is, once this has dried a little bit more, get another couple of coats of white paint on them, and then they should be good to go back on the brake van. So the springs have been sat in here now for around one and a half, nearly 2 days since I was last down the railway. And as you'll see from this shot here, the water is a very different colour to where I left it. Now I have pulled one spring out already, and as you'll see from this close-up, the transformation is a bit ridiculous actually. I'm quite surprised at the general condition that they've come out in. Now, the one thing it did say on the instructions was that to remove as much of the sort of large lumps and things as you can, otherwise the chemical won't work properly. And I can see on this spring already one area where I have, I didn't remove all the lumps. After scraping them off now, there's a little bit of rust has appeared underneath. However, where these are going to be positioned and the condition this one is in now, I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to put a coat of Hydrate 80 over it, and then they should be good. They should be good to go back on. Here's one that I've just pulled out before I've given it a wipe down, and here's one that's had a nice little clean up, which I'm super pleased with. So what I'm going to do now is take the bucket out, replace that water in there with some clean fresh water to rinse these all off in, bring them up on here and then give them a clean, and hopefully we'll end up with something like that. So if you look at the before and after shots, the difference is probably quite ridiculous. But yeah, super pleased with that, and to my surprise the product worked just as well with the slightly colder water than I thought it would need with the hot water. So I can imagine what this would have done had I used hot water from the start. So let's go clean these ones up and get them painted with the Hydrate 80. Right, so as you'd have seen from that time lapse, all of these have actually cleaned up very nicely. Really pleased with how they've come out. Even this bolt here, which is a rather important bolt in the brake mechanism, this basically holds some of the mechanism that pivots, and I've got to go underneath the brake van at some point today and Hydrate 80 the bit of metal that it sits in. But I thought, seeing as we tried the Deox-C with cold water and this is the result, what I've done here is I've got one of the larger pieces of one of the larger bits of mechanism from the brake rigging, and what I'm going to do is clean this up, and I've got a bucket behind me here of very hot water, and we're going to see if it makes a huge difference, if on this larger item with lots of hot water and lots of this stuff, see how much of rust it can remove and clean up. So what I'm going to do now is get this cleaned, put it, dunk it in the hot water and mix in some of the Deox-C, and then while that's doing that, we're then going to paint the outside bit. So this is the inside bit where the brake blocks sit. The outside bit we're going to give a coat of the Hammerite black paint, and also give these a coat of Hydra 80. So lots to try and get on with in a short space of time. So yeah, let's see how we do. Right, so in the workshop you'd have seen me cleaning up this bolt here. Now the reason I said this was an important one for the mechanism that works underneath here is because this bolt here actually come out of this bracket here. Now when you turn the brake wheel and move this, so that rotates the coil up and down, which pushes this backwards and forwards. The next piece that actually moves after that is the mechanism round here. So that's why I wanted to make sure these were nice and clean. So eventually when it all goes back in, that will then sit in there like so. But before we put any of this on here, obviously I want to Hydrate 80 this and clean it up a little bit, just to stop any more rust build up between the bolt here and the two pieces of metal that sit in between them. So what we're going to do now, I'll show a close up, is scrape back as much of the rubbish as I can, and then a couple of coats of the Hydrate 80. Right, so what's next? Well, as you can see, all the springs and the washers for the springs have had a couple of coats of Hydrate 80, and these are now ready to go back on the brake van once we've reassembled everything else. Now, what I've got in front of me here, these are the two hangers for the first set of the first bit of brake mechanism at one end of the brake van, and here are the two pins that sit through these holes here that hold it to the underside of the van. But what we need to do here is, using this chisel, just remove as much surface rubbish as possible, and then once again give them a clean on the inside here and Hydrate 80 them. These I'm actually going to paint because they're going to be pretty visible, so I think these will get a coat of paint on at least on one of the visible sides, if not both. So the plan is get these cleaned up, Hydrate 80'd, painted, and then actually we'll go and hang them back on the brake van just so they're out the way, and then they can dry in the outside. And I think on that note, that's where we're going to leave it. Now, you wouldn't have seen in the last clip, but I've actually started painting these hangers that are the sort of object deflectors. I don't know what the correct term is, but I've started painting these black as well. And I also put a test piece of Hydrate 80 on the axle here and painted that black, and that's come out quite nicely. So next time I'm down, I'm also going to paint both the axles as well. So hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, please do hit the thumbs up. If you want to go the extra mile to helping the channel, you can become a channel member for 99p a month. Any feedback, please leave it in the comment section below. Hit the thumbs up button, and of course subscribe if this is your first time here. But other than that, hopefully you guys have enjoyed and found it relatively interesting. I know some of it was literally watching paint dry. But yeah, I will see you all in the next episode.